inspired Peter Jackson to make the film because he only read the novels once, so it's not like he was a super fan. But when he watched that film, I think he saw there was so much potential to make a great film out of it, and that's what inspired him to do it. And he pitched this project to every studio under the sun, and they all said no. And the ones that did say yes, they wanted him to make all 3 novels into one movie. And that was his big, like, that was his, like, yeah, I can't do that. There's no way that would work, and I can't possibly make that happen. And eventually it did fall into the hands of Miramax, where they agreed to fund him with $180 million, but they wanted it to be 2 films, a 2-parter. And he said, maybe I'll say yes to that because everyone else said no to me. And then while he was mulling that over, he got in contact with New Line Cinema, an older production company that I don't think is around anymore. But it was big at the time. And they heard this pitch from Peter Jackson. It was the same pitch that Miramax liked. It was a 2-part franchise with 2 movies. And then New Line really liked the idea, but they said the one problem was they think it should be 3 movies, ironically. And so they greenlit it for Peter Jackson and gave him $300 million to make the entire project.
Yeah, and that's what the fascinating thing about it is. They shot all 3 movies back to back production wise. They didn't. It's kind of like what James Cameron's doing with the Avatar films right now. He's shooting 2 through 5 right now. He finished production on 2, 3, and he's doing 4 and 5 right now. So that's basically what that's what Peter Jackson is. He shot all 3 Lord of the Rings films and then went straight into post-production and editing for Fellowship of the Ring while they were probably finishing up filming at the same time.
I don't think the guy slept for 6 years.
Probably not.
Honestly, because like you just said, they were editing Fellowship while he was still finishing the production of the other 2. And it's an amazing task that this guy did. He must have been working 18 hours a day for at least 6 years straight. And it's an incredible production in terms of the scale of it because they basically, as we all know, it filmed in New Zealand, and they built like this town in New Zealand, and they
Hobbiton,
like the production
where they lived.
And it's basically the same thing that Marvel has done in Atlanta, where they have just bought this giant piece of land and then built their base of their production on there. And they did the same thing in New Zealand, where because they employed 3,000 people in total, and this includes like production crew and artists and everything, and the actors. And so 3,000 people worked on this project, and they had a massive production where they had huge constructed buildings and tents that were, this is the art department, and that's the sets department, that's the props department, that's the costume department. And it was this gigantic scale production that they just kind of like lived there for 5 years making this gigantic 3-part picture. And it's an amazing thing that Peter Jackson didn't lose control of the set, and he seems to be a great leader because only a great leader can oversee such a large scale production and number of people, and he seemed to do it without a problem.
And it's even more impressive when you think about the task that he had of directing this film and the intricate details, because Tolkien created such a vast world and these rich characters and environments, and basically it's just this new world, Middle Earth, that had never been done. It's a fantasy film, and all these little aspects of the production in terms of the practical effects, the computer animated effects, the motion capture stuff that they did with Gollum that had never really been done before, building all the miniature sets. That's why it looks so good, is they actually built these places. They built Hobbiton, they built the castles, and they built Hobbiton a year before they started filming just to make sure it has that weathered look, like it's been lived in and everything like that. And
they actually hired shepherds to bring sheep there to actually eat the grass to make sure the grass was the right height.
Yeah, so he had all these tiny little details in his head that he was controlling all day for a 5-year period that I'm sure is so exhausting on somebody, but he somehow held it together to make 3 of the best movies ever made.
It's an amazing thing, and a lot of directors had thought about adapting this, and they thought it was unfilmable. Stanley Kubrick was actually asked to direct this, and he deemed it unfilmable. But Peter Jackson knew that with the dawn of filmmaking technology in terms of using computers to help make films in a big way, he understood that the technology was there, and it wasn't fully there yet. He and his producers were literally creating the technology and the softwares for the CGI as they were filming. I mean, the workshop Weta Digital that does some of the best visual effects there are. They win a ton of Oscars and they do huge movies now. But Weta began on this production, and Peter Jackson put his money into it. And so they developed all the softwares that they used to depict the war scenes and most of the CGI. So they were literally creating software as they were producing the film.
Yeah, and it's a great fantasy adventure. And these stories are some of my favorite in terms of films and books. You talk about Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. Those are like the top three for me. And you just enter this remarkable fantasy world, and it's just like a different experience, I think, than normal films. And it's kind of like out of your body because it's pure imagination. And Peter Jackson just visually harnessed the densities of these stories by Tolkien, which, again, they're so rich in detail and even encyclopedic at times. And he has to do it the right way. And I think the greatest strength that he did when he made the first film and they were writing the script is they focused on Frodo as the main storyline, the main plot of the film. He's the main character, and we're on his journey because all these characters, they kind of get equal time in the books, and you spend more time with Gandalf, you spend more time with Elrond.
Yeah, it's written in the third person.
Yeah, and so if you actually spend equal time with all these characters, it doesn't have that same emotional cohesion that you get with just following Frodo as the main protagonist, and I think that was the smartest move that they did.